Hi, Starlo here again. You know, fishing is so much fun, but it's heaps better if you actually catch something, and that's what I'm here to help you with. So far in this Let's Go Fishing series, we've looked at choosing and buying your tackle, putting it together, spooling your reel up with line, and I've taught you some basic but very effective knots and rigs. Now we're going to put some bait on our hooks so we can actually catch a fish. You can use all sorts of things for bait, even stuff that we like to eat ourselves like bread and cheese and meat. But the best baits are often the things that the fish recognise from the areas where they live and that they love to eat. In fresh water, that could mean baits like yabbies and shrimps, or even good old earthworms dug up out of your garden or the compost heap. These worms are great for catching all sorts of freshwater fish, and they even work in the saltwater at times, especially on species like bream, mullet and even whiting. But the truth is that these days not all of us have enough time to go and gather our own bait, and that usually means that we've got to go and buy it from a tackle shop or a service station. Choosing things like frozen prawns, squid or cockles, or maybe little fish such as pilchards and whitebait. These are all really good baits and you'll catch plenty of fish on them. But whenever you're buying bait, make sure you choose local Australian caught products. Using imported seafoods for bait runs the risk of introducing some really nasty pests and diseases into our waterways. But to be honest, you'll not only save money, you'll also catch more by using bait that you've caught or gathered yourself, and you'll also have heaps more fun doing it. That could mean digging up those earthworms in the backyard, or catching little fish and invertebrates like yabbies or nippers or worms using a few simple tools. And those bait catching tools should include a bait trap like this one, and a yabby pump like this. You can buy these bait catching tools at most tackle shops and they'll really pay for themselves over time. To use the bait trap, you put some bread inside and place it in very shallow water, just enough to cover it. Then wait for little mullet and other fish to swim in through these funnel shaped holes. When there's a few little fish inside, you wade out, place your hands over the holes and pick the trap up. A yabby pump is used by pushing its tube down into the sand or mud, then pulling the handle up to create suction. Our shallow estuary flats are loaded with free bait. Go when the tide's low and look for areas with lots of little burrows. Use your pump to suck up sand and squirt it onto the edge. Then search for the critters that made those burrows. Most will be saltwater yabbies, also called pink nippers, but you might find worms and little crabs too. They're all great bait. This is a fun activity that gets everyone involved, but be careful of those sharp claws. They can give you a painful nip. The best burrows are the ones with raised rims that look like tiny volcanoes. Keep your baits alive in a bucket of clean salt water, but be sure to take only as many as you need and always stick to the bag limits and other rules. And of course, only gather bait where you're allowed to. It shouldn't take more than an hour or so to collect enough bait for your whole group, and then it's time to go fishing. Feed the yabbies or nippers onto a long shanked hook tail first and gently cast them out. Fish just love these critters and it shouldn't take too long to get a few bites. You never know what you'll catch either, as just about everything that swims will eat a yabby or a nipper. Okay, so let's have a closer look at how to put some of those common baits onto our hooks, because just cramming them on there any old how isn't really the best way to do it. With both prawns and yabbies, it's always best to start at the tail end and then carefully feed the bait around the bend of a hook that has a fairly long shank. Bring the hook point out under the bait's head, in amongst the legs. Push the tail right up over the hook eye and knot if you need to. That'll help keep it on when you cast. You want to end up with a nice straight bait like this. That'll catch all sorts of fish, but sometimes if the fish are a bit smaller or they're biting a little bit softly, you'll do better by peeling the prawn first. To do this, break the head off the prawn and then peel the shell away. Be sure to throw all these tasty little scraps into the water right where you're fishing, because they'll help to attract fish. Now feed the peeled prawn tail onto your hook like this. You don't really need a long shanked hook for this bait. You can also break the prawn tail into smaller bits and put those on little hooks. A piece of peeled prawn tail with a little hook hidden inside is a really good bait for all sorts of fish. But if you're chasing something bigger, you might want to use a small fish or a piece of fish for bait. Pilchards or sardines are great baits. To use them on a single hook, cut the bait into pieces like this and then feed those pieces onto the hook. But make sure you cast them out gently so the soft bait doesn't fly off the hook. Of course, some people don't enjoy dealing with messy, smelly bait and they prefer to use lures, which are really just imitation or artificial baits. You can use soft ones like this or hard ones like these. Whatever type of lure you choose, you need to make it look like something that's alive when it's in the water. And to do that, you'll need to use your rod and reel to give it movement and action. It's a bit like putting on a puppet show to fool the fish, and it's lots of fun. Well, there you go. We've learned about some great baits, how to catch them, how to put them on our hooks, and we've also learnt a little bit about lures or artificial baits. In the next part of the series, I'm going to show you how to cast those lures and baits out to where the fish live. Until then, tight lines.